Welcome to the Head Over Heels podcast, dedicated to helping you build the business and life of your dreams. We'll be sharing tips on management, leadership, strategy, marketing and mindset, and much more. Let's get started with your host, Angela Cedran.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Heads Over Heels. I'm your host, Angela Cedran. Today, we're going to talk about things you can do to get your life and your time back and get more done every week. My guest today is Claudia Romero, all the way from Edinburgh in Scotland. Welcome, Claudia.
Hello, how are you doing?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining me. We're on total opposite ends of the world. Claudia,
Yeah.
You don't sound like you have a very Scottish name. What are you doing living in Edinburgh?
Well, I'm from Chile originally, and I married a British Canadian man, that we met in London, and then he got a job here in Scotland. So we moved here, and my plan was staying for a couple of years because the weather wasn't great, and we had children, and my youngest son born with a rare condition, so the best place to stay for him was here because of the health insurance and everything works quite well here. So he has everything, and in other countries that we could be staying, like Canada or United States or even Chile, the health system is too expensive. So we decided to stay here.
Yeah.
And I really like Edinburgh. It's a beautiful city. The only thing that the seasons aren't great, but you have the continent quite close, so you can have 2 weeks escaping in the sun. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's true. You know, you're right. You live right next door to many places you can visit. Certainly, Claudia, I think you and I have a lot in common in terms of the fact that we're both mothers and we've both had to make sacrifices and do things to raise our children. But we've also had to make career choices because of our children. I've been a single mother for a very long time. You have your son, and I believe you work from home because you care for him as well.
Yes, I have. Actually, I have 3 boys,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to care for them 3 because we don't have any family around, so I cannot rely on grandparents or friends or family. So child minders for us were quite tricky because of the condition of my youngest son. So the best thing was me to stay at home and raise them. Now the older 2 are more independent, but the youngest one is not going to be independent. So I decided to start a business a few years ago, like 6 years ago, related to the condition of my son, because I couldn't find clothing that was easy for him to get dressed. So with a partner, a very good friend that she's a fashion designer, we decided to start a business in making clothing for special needs. But sadly, last year we had a big company here called Marks and Spencer decided to launch a very similar line after we had a meeting together to collaborate. And because of their prices, we couldn't compete with them, and we decided with our hearts in the hands to close it because it wasn't sustainable. My background is in finance, so I knew that it's not going to be feasible to go and cover cost all the time. So we decided to close it. And in the meantime, I have a entrepreneurial mind, so I started to develop this new business that I'm running now, that I started last year with the whole idea on how to implement. When the business closed, I had another idea to help specifically women to be more focused and get their time back in their lives, because women tend to do everything for the rest of the people and forget themselves. And especially when you're a mom, you sometimes lose your identity because you do everything for your children. And that is right. That is completely right, because it's a work of love and everything. But if you forget yourself, and if you are all the time stressed, overwhelmed, and with anxiety, you are not going to be able to help anyone. So we need, as a woman, start to think on how to help ourselves as well. And also be productive, and also do the things that we need to do. It's very, very difficult, and I've seen so many friends that are running from place to place to keep their children entertained, and sometimes they need some space, and they need the space to be bored, to be more creative and entertain themselves. So as I say before, I think my children are more independent now, but I have to stay with my youngest. But I never overload them, so they have to see how they entertain themselves and how they can do things to keep active. So I'm not a taxi driver, so I'm glad to go with them to different activities, but they don't have to be all the time at activities, because the one that is going to suffer is yourself.
That's actually very true. I think we as parents have a responsibility to keep our kids going and active and entertained all the time. But in a way, by not doing that, we're actually teaching them more independent skills as well. I remember a story, I read the biography of Richard Branson, and one thing I look at in terms of this is, how does a person become the way he's become? And there's a story that his mother left him. They were on the way home, and they lived in the country in England, and she left him in a field close to home. I'm not advocating this for other mothers, but she left him in a field close to home and told him to figure out his own way back. So the story in that, I guess the point that I'm trying to make, is that sometimes our children are better off actually working things out for themselves. And if they are in that little bit of discomfort and a bit of boredom, they should find a way to get themselves out of it, rather than rely on somebody else to do it for them.
Yeah.
So I completely
agree
with you. Yeah, exactly. And I've been in the same boat as well, because as a single parent, there were times when I've had to teach him to be more independent. You can't be everywhere at once. I had to go to work I'd never had the joy of working from home when he was little. I just didn't have that financial possibility. So he had to walk home from school. And I remember my father at that point, my son was 13 when he started walking on. He wasn't that small. But my father was absolutely shocked that I was letting this boy walk home. And it was about 4 blocks at that point. And my son's always been quite a big kid. He's not this little puny individual. He's always been able to take care of himself. But even then, there's certain things that he's had to learn to do on his own. So I'm totally with you on that point. And I know a lot of women initially feel selfish or guilty even that they're not doing it. But, there is a reason that they always say to you, put your oxygen mask on first.
That is one of my lines as well. In the online course that I'm going to launch, that is one of the lines, because if you don't do it, if you're burnt out, if you're stressed and depressed and everything, you are not going to help anyone else.
So I'm interested, today we're going to talk about 3 things that we've been listening to can really implement to help them to become more productive. But tell me a little bit about your course, because maybe you can incorporate 3 of the things that you teach in this new course of yours.
Well, the course is not launched yet. At the moment, my program is one-on-one coaching for a month. And I implement all these techniques with the client. And there are 5 steps, basically. And those are quite simple, but the mom or the person has to do their work. I cannot do their work for them. They have to decide, yes, I'm going to do it because this is going to help me for life, and I'm going to have time back. In the coaching, I promise if they do it, they can have at least 30 minutes each day back.
Which they could use
But
for themselves even.
you can sit down and have a cup of coffee or tea, relax, or read a book or read a magazine or whatever. But if you do the things properly, you can have 1 hour or more a day back if you are efficient and if you stick and if you create the habits, and then they come automatic. It's quite,
Yeah. And time is really the most valuable thing we have.
it is your biggest asset.
What would be the 3 top things that you would give your clients in terms of advice?
The first thing is to invest a little bit of time, usually on Sunday afternoon because it's quite a more relaxed day, to plan ahead. So plan ahead your workload, plan ahead your house work or house chores that you have to do, and plan ahead your meals, plan ahead your shopping. So that way, if you have it in your list and you know what you have to do each day of the following week, you're not going to waste time thinking or going back and forth of the things that you have to do. The second one is set less goals, because we tend to overload our list with things to do. Start to reduce it, start to having like 3 main goals per week, and then all the action step to follow. And I mean 3 goals in relation to work and 3 in relation of personal life. So, and you can balance. And in that, you can, if you have too many tasks, you can see what you can delegate, because we don't have to do everything. We can delegate. Your children can do things at home. Your colleagues can do some of the load and help you. You don't have to do it everything. You are not the one that is going to be paid more to do everything.
That's actually very true. And there is help that you can get. I mean, if you need to really reclaim some time, you could perhaps get a VA. But I like the idea of balance as well, because I also always talk about this. You know, we tend to, when we set goals, just think of work. But at the end of the day, we aren't a one-sided human being. We've got work, we've got our health and ourselves and our spirit and our welfare, and we've got relationships and family too. So I really like the idea of planning with this balance. And I really like the idea of sitting down on a Sunday saying, right, these are the things I need to do this week. But then I can see how if you have the tasks for each of those goals, you'll know exactly when you have to do them throughout the week.
Yes, exactly. And you can prioritize what have to be done first and what you can eliminate. There is a technique that Brian Tracy uses, and I think is very, very important, is prioritizing all your tasks and activities from A to E. The A are the ones that you have to take action, the ones that you have to do and nobody else can do it. The B's are the less important, but you have to do it anyway in maybe a longer period of time. The C's are the ones that if you do it or not doing, it doesn't have any consequences. So if you make your bed today or you don't make your bed today, it doesn't matter.
Right.
It's nice to have it, but if you don't have the time to do it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The D's are delegate and the E's are eliminate. So you don't have to do it. Eliminate it. It's taking time in your head, it's cluttering your head, it's cluttering your activities, and you don't have to do it. Eliminate it. Bye. So basically that is the second tip. And the third tip is that I always tell to my clients is make an appointment with yourself. and treat it like it's an appointment with a client or it's an appointment with your work, and you have to be there for you. So give an hour a week at least. Go walk, go to yoga, but be present in that moment. Because if you are going to yoga or Pilates or swimming or whatever, and you are thinking, I have to do the shopping, I have to pick my son, I have to go to send emails, your mind is not in the place that is going to enjoy the activity. You have to unwind, and you have to disconnect, and you have to treat yourself in a proper way. You are important. You are the important one. If you don't function, nothing around you is going to function.
That's very true. And actually, you've just made me think of something. You mentioned thinking of the groceries. I found a really good way to just reclaim some time is to get the groceries delivered.
Yeah, I do that, and I have like two systems. Do it online with the things that don't expire, and you can buy it in 1 month or 1 month and a half, and you are going to have all those things all the time. And the rest of the things, I go to the supermarket every 10 days, more or less, and I buy the fruit and everything, and I pick fruit that are green, because I know after 10 days they are going to be ready.
Yeah.
And I don't have to come back every second day to buy things.
Yeah.
The only thing that I go but is like in a convenience store or something very close to the house is bread and milk. That's it. And that doesn't take you too much time.
Yeah. Look, I love those tips. I particularly, I love all of them equally, but I love the last one about the self-care. And this is something that I still don't do properly, and that I'm going to do now that you've told me to do it, is I will work until I fall over. And there's so many days where I'm going to go to yoga, I'm going to do this, and then I just keep working. So I'm going to do what you've told me to do. I'm going to make an appointment in my diary at least 4 times a week, and I'm going to go and do that for myself.
Yeah, that is very important. And if you cannot do it for 1 hour, for example, mainly of fitness are 1 hour, basically.
Yeah.
But if you cannot do it, half an hour is enough. Half an hour daily.
Good. Yeah.
But I'm not meaning sitting down watching TV. Do something for you, like meditate, rest in your bed, declutter your mind, because that is the most important thing. We tend to think too many things at the same time. We need to declutter our minds. Have a jotter or a notebook, and when ideas come to your mind, write it there, and then you're going to see, oh, this is not important, I can eliminate it, I can drop it, this is taking action. But you will see that decluttering your head, you are going to start to declutter your life.
Look, thank you so much for talking to me today. It's been a joy to meet you. I am always so inspired by the women that I talk to, and your story is very, very inspiring. The fact that you run a business as well is remarkable. But you're obviously an organized woman, and what you do and what you coach women on obviously works, because you're managing to do effectively everything, be a mother to 3 children, one of whom really needs you a lot every day, and still run a business. So you're still doing that for yourself and finding the time to regenerate yourself and your mind so that you can keep taking care of everybody. And I think that's really a remarkable story. And I can see how many women will really need you, because a lot of women come to me and they say that I've got no time. I can't do this, I have no time. And it's usually one of their biggest issues. But if you don't do that for yourself now, I think if the legacy you leave your children is also not going to be the best one. So start taking care of yourself is my message to the women watching. And tell me, how can women get hold of you? So I know you said you do one-to-one coaching now. And look, for some women who are overseas, that might be harder to get in touch with you because you're in Scotland. But I'm sure you're going to have clients in the US and you're going to have clients in my part of the world.
Yeah.
Tell me, how can they find you?
Well, they can visit my website, that is claudiaromerocoaching.com,
Mm-hmm.
and then go to the service page. That is quite easy, actually, and we do Zoom sessions, and I provide all the guides, and because I really like to help people, I'm more present than only 2 sessions a month. So usually I'm writing emails, seeing how they are going. Usually they tell I'm not doing anything because I haven't have time. Well, but if you don't give time to do the things, you're not going to improve. So usually the month effectively it can be like 5 weeks. So I'm quite supportive. For me, the most important thing is to help them to learn how to organize their life a little bit better to have time back. And I have a promotion actually, and a free guide that they can download that has basic 5 steps on how to get that time back. Mm-hmm. That they can do it by themselves, but it's a little bit more, yeah, I'm going to do it, but then I'm not doing it. So it's not because I want them to hire me, but I think if they have me in their life, they are going to move forward a little bit quicker than only do it by themselves.
Absolutely. Sometimes you just need that accountability. You know, when I look at people who go through different courses, so we as coaches have different ways of actually reaching our audience. We can either work one-to-one with them, and that works well. You know, they get FaceTime with us and we can keep them accountable, or they can work in a group, which works well too, because obviously they have the community. But what happens often there is that they fall behind. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I like the retreats. It gives them the opportunity to get pulled out of their environment, so they don't have any of those distractions. They're in a new experience, but they also have 3 or 4 days with you to just work and put that work in. Because what I find in the retreats and why I love them is because they will never get that kind of work done on their own in that period of time. So it's a really good way to do that quick reset as well. So there's so much value in your lead magnet. There's so much value in them even just starting to think about it, because often they will find that it's just too difficult to do it on their own. And the value in having someone to keep you accountable, and also just the value of having someone to talk to. It's lonely running a business, and often we can't help our partners or our family.
And to be honest, the guide is the free guide is packed with good information. And some things are things that you already know, to be honest, like stop procrastination and avoid disruptions. You always know that, but how to implement it and how to stick with that and how to stick with a plan that works takes a little bit of support. So, for example, simple thing is to check social media, unless you work in social media, check social media 3 times a day. That's it. And set the phone for half an hour, and that's it. Check your emails, check social media, and that's it. Because we tend to go into, and I'm guilty of that as well, tend to go to Facebook and then realize that you spend 2 hours doing nothing.
Yes, I know.
Not doing nothing, being social, but then you have the things that you have to do it there.
Yeah.
So, we always have those moments. But if that moment turn into a daily moment, that is not productive, and you're not going to achieve anything.
It's hours and hours. Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely wonderful. I'm going to download that as soon as we get off this call. Thank you so much for joining me. I am really blessed and grateful to have you on the show. And next time, I've never actually been to Edinburgh, so I'm going to come and visit you.
Oh, you have to come.
I will, absolutely.
And we have a spare room, so.
Oh, thank you so much.
I mean it. Chilean people, when they say come to visit me, is because we mean it. It's not that, no, come and then, no, I don't know you. No, you have to. It's a beautiful city. It's a gorgeous city.
Yes, I have. And I'm back in Europe in spring again, so I will definitely come. It's time for me to visit Scotland and Ireland.
Yeah. Never been to Ireland, but yeah.
Maybe we can go together. We can get a few days.
Yeah,
off.
maybe a weekend.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Claudia, thank you to you again. This has been another episode of Heads Over Heels, and I will see you next time. I wish you all the joy and success. Take care.
This episode of Head Over Heels, the podcast for female entrepreneurs, has ended. But be sure to subscribe for more business strategies and tactics to help you create the profitable and successful business and life you've always dreamed of. And don't forget to rate and review so we can continue to bring you the best content. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.